Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. Today we're going to do a quick story covering the recent developments in gold. And as always, there is just a lot of news to sort through. There's always a ton of headlines, a ton of different information available on gold, on what it's doing and why. And then, of course, the predictions, where it's going to go, and things like that. Well, as many of you are aware, myself included, gold was pretty unpredictable earlier and at the start of this year, starting around the end of December, beginning of January. It did things and performed in ways that not a lot of us really expected. We did talk about it possibly rising with an interest rate, made a video kind of validating that position or predicting that position anyway. And as you can see, gold has continued to do fairly well, did pretty good last week. We're up at 1266.50, a little bit of a dip today. And we'll go through these headlines, just kind of gather some of the information and see what the theme is here. China, of course, China. You can't really make a video about gold without talking about China. Sometimes I feel like the unmentionable, Donald Trump, in that, he seems to blame or talk about China or bring it up quite often in his ridiculous, blusterous speeches. Now, China, yes, in the news, buying gold, increasing their reserves, rising to 57.5 million troy ounces at the end of February. Just an incredible amount of gold. Their reserves stood at 57.5 million at the end of February, which is up from 57.18 million at the end of January. They began updating their reserve figures on a monthly basis in June of 15. Prior to that, their reserve figures were not updated as regularly. Now, Lori Williams, this is an opinion piece, but basically talking about the change in sentiment regarding gold. Back in December, gold had few, if any, friends among the mainstream analysts. Of course, we've talked about that. You and I were still pretty much committed to the cause and realizing gold was valuable, was an asset, and a hedge, and so on. And of course, when things took place and the tide shifted and gold started to behave more positively and react and rise in value, well, lo and behold, it's got a bunch of new people thinking that it's the greatest thing. People talk about it like they predicted it. And lo and behold, you start seeing, as we talked about in earlier channels, videos, that you start seeing that attention from mainstream financial news outlets. Its performance is a little short of spectacular. We've seen an increase of around, I've seen everything from 17 to 18%. Depends when the article came out, because obviously you can have a 2 or 3% or point differential between dates. If it goes up 2% or down 2% on a day, you'll see a shift there in what the articles are coming out at. But I've seen 17% stated, I've seen 20% stated. So that's all good numbers for 1 or 2 months into the year. Just 2 months into it to see that kind of performance. We've seen the other markets recover a little bit, but still, the markets really got beat up pretty good. The Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ. They're seeing massive gold investment buying. And this is not just taking place here in the West, in the United States, and so on, but there's a worldwide demand right now that's really picking up pace. And this article's calling it a powerful surge and massive investment buying. And I like the term sea change. I've read it from Fouquet before, but there's a marked sea change from recent years where investors were pulling out of gold. Now we're seeing, and you'll see later on in this as we go through these headlines, basically a rush back into gold, but they've made up for 2 years worth of sales already. So they've replaced what it took 2 years to sell. ETFs and some of these major markets are purchasing the amount of gold that they basically took off the books. They sold. So they took 2 years to sell it, and they bought it back in 2 months, which is a pretty incredible move when you think about it. So the gold price, it's official. The bull market is back. It's calling it a bull market. Gains of $200 from the December low, up 20%. This is definitely good for miners. The 2016 rally gathered momentum on Thursday with the metal exchanging hands for $1,269. This is last Thursday, of course, an ounce. In late afternoon trade, that was up $27.50. So the reason I'm bringing up this news now is I did miss producing this back in Thursday, so a little less than a week ago. But I figured we could cover it today. Now, vaults have not been this stacked since January of 2014, and nearly 2 years of outflows have poured back in. So there you have it. 2 years. Now look at this chart here, turning the tide. Change in physical gold-backed ETF holdings. This is measured in tons, so metric tons. You can see there, big dump back in 13, a little bit in 14 and 15, and then up 277 tons. So they replaced that 14 and 15. Those sales have basically been repurchased. Definitely good for gold. Definitely adds major strength to the prices we're seeing now, to the price point. And this really does line up with and I think validate that position that I've talked about here on the channel before, that gold's low, that base price, I think it's going to continue to be around 1,000, 1,100, 1,080. But, as we've stated in the past, India and a lot of the major countries that were purchasing gold purchased it in a price range that really cemented the price at those values. So 1,040, 1,020. I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. That's my theory on it. India bought something like 220 tons. I remember when it happened. It was like $1,100 an ounce, or $1,120, $1,140, right in that range. Well, it locks the price in there, or adds a lot of strength to it. So investors piling into gold funds and ETFs. The precious metals already up nearly, again, 17% from the start of the year. Some analysts are now suggesting the case for gold is getting even stronger. Of course, it's always easy to say that when it's performing this way. I, here on the Junius Maltby channel, this Junius Maltby project, we know that. We seem to have a common voice in believing that, yeah, gold's going someplace. We know where it's going. We know why it's going there. A lot of these pundits, these financial analysts, these people on the news, they don't grasp the concept. They don't know why gold does what it does. They just like what it does, and they jump on it at that time. And as soon as things might get a little shaky, they abandon ship. They don't see the fractures, the cracks in the global economy. They don't see that giant reservoir of fiat cash and the derivative markets being held back by this faulty dam that is aged and falling apart. That dam being the old and archaic financial policies of Keynesian economics that we've existed under for the last century, and have basically destroyed and rotted labor, currencies, the global economy as a whole, robbed the treasuries of countless nations, bankrupted entire nations. And, we're seeing statements now coming out from, where did I read that? Bank of International Settlements just released a statement, and this was probably a couple days ago I read this. People in this world are losing faith in the modern economic systems. They're losing faith in government in droves, whole crowds of people. I think a lot of this has to do with global communication now, the internet, channels like this. I'm not giving myself any credit, and I should not, because again, I'm just a medium in which information passes through. I don't come up with this stuff. I just pass it on to you guys. I take the football and toss it, and you guys catch it and run with it. The information's out there. We're all seeing the same stuff. We're all reading the same stuff. And that's helping crumble their ideology and erode their lies. They're just not getting the credit they used to. People are seeing right through it. We're seeing inflation. We're seeing food prices go up. We're seeing what's happening in other countries like Venezuela. We've seen the bank collapse and the attack that the international banking system had on Argentina years ago. There's documentaries out there, there's news outlets out there, there's alternative news media and stories. All of this is helping destroy the confidence and faith in these international banking cartels, these private banking corporations like the Federal Reserve, Wells Fargo, Citi, the whole Wall Street apparatus that is designed to funnel as much money from the masses, from you and I, to the top elites as possible. It's funny when you got guys like Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. They talk about, equality and taking care of the poor and the meek and the meager. They try to sound like Old Testament prophets wandering around in a desert baptizing people and caring, but they're not. They're not that. If anything, they're like Pharisees. They live one way and speak another. You know, you've got these people, they have no concept of what's really going on. If Bernie Sanders really cared about the poor, he would destroy the Federal Reserve. He would attack it like Ron Paul attacked it. That is the enemy. That is what's destroying the currency. That is what's destroying labor. That is what creates this disparity of wealth. All the money it's designed. The Fed was founded to do that, to create a lack of competition, to destroy small banks, and to funnel all of the wealth that it could to the elites, the upper 0.1% that they always refer to. So unless there is a, quote, revolutionary change in the way we do this, to quote the Byrne, the communist, the socialist, unless there is a revolutionary change, not the kind he wants, the kind that we want, the kind that Ron Paul wanted, the original revolution of change, we need to dismantle the political and economic systems that we have in place and return to sound money principles and non-fractional reserve banking. Those are the things we need to go back to the way things were, not the way things should be, because there is no should be. There were systems in place that worked, but there was always corruption. You know, as soon as they started diluting currencies, and as soon as they started the fractional reserve system, that's when you get those bank runs. That's when you get those bank collapses. There's a way to do this. And it doesn't involve expanding the government. It doesn't involve printing more money. It involves the opposite of that, if anything. So decentralizing the power, and loosening the laws, letting people trade and barter with each other. You know, I should be able to use gold and silver. There should not be a trading with the enemy act that like FDR put in place. So, you know, that's part of the reason gold's going up worldwide. Worldwide, it has recognition. Countries see it, individuals see it, you and I see it, and we're not buying the lies anymore. So hopefully we see something happen. I don't know where all this is headed, but it's always fun to pay attention to it and talk about it anyway. So have a great day. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the Junius Maltby channel. Continue to tune in. Please join our community on Google Plus there if you can find it. There's a little Junius Maltby community. And don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. You know, help this channel grow. We're up to what, 8,000 subscribers now? That's a pretty healthy number, 7,000 or 8,000. So our community continues to grow, and we continue to talk about good things. So have a good night. Take care of yourselves, and stand by for a video in the future on paying off houses, how to pay off houses and get that mortgage out of your way. We're going to talk about that. Don't let me